Mike Ambassador Bruny. Today, we are going to be talking about conference networking, which is a very interesting topic. So, Mike, can you say hello and introduce yourself?
Hey, this is Mike Ambassador Bruny, as Natalie said, out here in the greater Boston area. And most of my focus is on helping people with soft skills, and networking and conference networking is one of them, and also personal branding and public speaking.
Excellent. There's so many very relevant and important topics to cover when you're running a business. So, Mike, you and I met at Social Media Marketing World 1 month ago. So, that, like pretty much just a little bit over a month ago, we met live at the event. But we actually met before that online, thanks to you.
Yes, well, that's all part of it, is helping people to connect beforehand and then turn hashtags to handshakes, as I like to say.
I love that hashtags the handshake. So you were like very active in or if not an instigator of the groups that they set up for Social Media Marketing World on LinkedIn and on Facebook in order to help people liaise, which we'll talk about in later on, because I know that's one of your tips, is about prepping. So how did you get that role? I know that at Social Media Marketing World, you were up there on the stage, you were sharing your goodness about networking. How did you get that role?
Well, it goes back to networking, funny enough. A gentleman named Rich Brooks, who's out in Maine, is a guy who I met a couple years ago now, over 3 years ago, at Blog World in New York City. We connected. I went to his event in Maine. I live tweeted. I wrote some articles for him. And later on, I noticed that Social Media Examiner, who runs Social Media Marketing World, was having their first conference. This is 3 years ago now. And I said, boy, this would be an awesome conference to bring, the new art of conference networking to. And I looked at it and I said, well, who do I know who knows the people who run this? Mike Stelzner and Phil Mershon, who knows them? And it ends up being Rich Brooks. Rich Brooks was part of that family. So I reached out to Rich and I said, hey, Rich, I'm looking to connect with these people. Here's why. It looks like they're really serious about helping their attendees make connections. And that's what I'm all about. Rich said, well, I could do that, but that probably won't get you as far as if I did this. And that this was making me a guest on his show that was focused on networking. It was focused on networking for that session, and I answered questions. And he made sure that Phil, who's the director of events for Social Media Marketing World and Social Media Examiner, was in the crowd. So Phil and I got to interact, and next thing you know, we ran an experiment actually the first year. We tested it out. They saw what I was about, and this is the third year running.
That's awesome. I mean, first of all, like Phil and Mike did a super awesome job at that event. It was amazing. But I do think it's so important, I think, to acknowledge the role of networking, and that it's not just something that happens. Sometimes people do need a little bit of guidance or a little bit of some tips and advice around how to make the most of networking opportunities.
Well, you're preaching to the choir. I agree.
I
And
agree. We're totally on.
we're the same page. I made this video once because honestly, reaching out to conference organizers, sometimes the concept is a little bit lost there because there is a feeling of, I'll just grab someone to handle the networking. So I did this whole parody of being a conference organizer and going, okay, let's see, tables, check. Curtains, check. Video, check. Oh, wait a minute, we have to do something about networking. I know what I'll do. I'll have an opening party and a closing party. I'm a genius. So it was not really giving it the respect and understanding that many people can use the guided assistance of making the connections that are really meaningful.
Yeah, and we can talk specifically about Social Media Marketing World as well as other conferences that you've attended, because I know for me, Social Media Marketing World, huge, right? 2,500 people, and people from all over the world attending. And there's different types of networking that goes on, be it at the opening evening, at the opening event, is slightly different than the way that you would network when you're sitting down beside someone when you're about to listen to a keynote speech. Like it's just different. So I know you've got loads of tips. So can you share with us some of your tips around how people can successfully network at conferences?
Yeah, well, some of the things that I like to tell people to do first is start off with what I call focus. So it's a four-part framework. The first one is focus. Is before you even decide on what conference you're going to go to, step back and analyze, well, what are some of the goals that you have for life, for business, to make sure that the conference you're going to actually matches those things. Because it's easy to say, I'm going to this conference, it looks cool, and then say, what are my plans for this conference? But it has to align to your life. So it's taking the time to do that. Think about who are the type, or really whom are the type of people you'd like to meet. Now, you don't have to know names, but a title. And the important thing about that is when you know the type of person you're looking to meet, you can have conversation that way. Yeah, I'm looking to run into someone who may be a director of marketing who specializes in Google Ads, something of that nature. And it makes a different conversation to have with people. So that's the focus part of it. Make sure you know what you're going for. The next is engage. And this is a little bit of the secret sauce of the new art of conference networking, hashtags to handshakes. I like to ask the question, are you familiar with the TV show Cheers?
I
That's a
am.
question for you.
Yeah.
And, basically I help people walk into conferences and get greeted like Norm from the TV show Cheers. There's the sense of familiarity. And that comes from the second piece here of engagement. And that's reaching out online before you ever step foot at the conference, because then we have anticipation built. Oh, I can't wait to meet so-and-so. I wonder if they're like, if they're the same online as they are offline. So there's that. Those are some of the things that I do as far as engage, teach people how to make those connections, how to take it to another level. Hey, why don't we Skype? Why don't we have virtual coffee? Everything really just takes 15 minutes to get this stuff established. That's engaged. And third is attend. And this one is actually when it's time to show up at the conference, knowing yourself, getting your mind ready, knowing that, hey, am I someone who needs a lot of prep to get motivated to connect with people? Am I someone who, after meeting with X amount of people, need to take a break? There's nothing wrong with taking a nap. I'm 100% for it. So that's all part of the engagement aspect of it. Is how do you show up in person? How do you work with people? How do you manage meeting the speakers? And one of the things I say not to do is don't be a super fanboy or super fangirl where you're just trying to suck up all their time. Understanding the context of a conference is really a little bit touch and go. Hey, really enjoy your work. It's a pleasure to meet you. I know it's a little crazy right now. You're meeting a lot of people. I'd love to connect with you later. Just remember me, I'm the person with the bow tie. That's if you're wearing a bow tie. But give them that space and kind of play it more cool and respect that space for the for the speaker.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess speakers do get bombarded, particularly after they give a keynote, or even they had so many different tracks at Social Media Marketing World. But I've got a little story. We, at one of the events, actually it was the opening night ceremony, which was amazing, on the Navy vessel, and thousands of people in this room. And Pat Flynn was there. I mean, a lot of people were there, that podcasters that I've been listening to for years. And, I had that kind of Hollywood moment where I'm like, oh, it's Pat Flynn, But it was really cool because there were people kind of not lining up, but almost like not barging through. But I was kind of just standing to the side, and he could see that I was waiting, like, and I think politely waiting, like not shy, not in a shy way, but in a polite way. And there were two other guys that were standing near me, and I was like, hey, like, should we just get a photo together with him after? Because these other people just kept barging in. And I think he really appreciated the fact that we were just kind of respectful and kind of waiting. And I said, hey, Pat, can we grab a photo with you? And then I said, okay, boys, move aside. I want a photo with just me and Pat now. And it was really cool. But I mean, I certainly wasn't doing the super fan thing. I was doing like a respectful fan. And then I just said to him after, hey, I'd love it if I could give you a copy of my book for your wife. I've written this parenting book. I know we've got kids that are the same age. And he was like, yeah, that would be great. And I actually didn't have it with me. So a few days later, when I fortunately ran into him again, I gave him a copy, and, and I haven't yet, but I'll probably follow up with an email. One of my goals on my dream board is to get on a few other podcasts. I've been on Natalie Sisson's podcast, but I'd love to be on Pat Flynn's podcast. I've got a great story to tell. So we'll see if I can make that happen. But I think hopefully he'll remember me. Like, you've got your bow tie. I don't know what I've got, but I've got my book that he's got now.
That's right.
My face on it, and it's got my business card. It's had my business card tucked in it as well. So hopefully he'll remember.
You've got generosity.
I do.
You've got generosity, and you already know this, so this may be more helpful for your audience. But being able to say, "Hey, I'm the person who gave you the book for your wife. at Social Media Marketing World. You may or may not remember me. Like, I'm big on this, giving people room
Yeah.
to, you know, to say, oh yeah, that's right, or to say, no, I don't remember you, and that's okay that they don't remember you. But here we are, so I think the generosity piece is a huge piece when it comes to engaging at an actual conference.
Yeah, and I think also generosity in the right places. Like, because I've been listening to his podcast, I know that he walks his kids to school with his wife, and like, I know that we have kids the same age. I mean, I wouldn't give him a book. I actually also gave one to Cliff Ravenscraft, Podcast Answer Man, because I know he's got young kids as well. Like, I wouldn't give up my book to say to someone, "Hey, here's my book," if they've got teenagers, because it's like they could teach me everything. I'm like, I don't have anything to teach them. I don't know about teenagers. I haven't been there yet. So, you know what I mean? Like, it's gotta be the right fit.
You mean you wouldn't give one? If Pat Flynn was standing there with Lewis House, you wouldn't give one to Lewis House?
He has no kids. Does he have no kids?
No, he doesn't have any kids.
No, but you know what I'd say? Hey, Lewis, if you've got kids in your future, then this is awesome, because it's awesome from the preconception, pregnancy, right through to starting school. I
Ah,
probably, if he said, "Can I have one?" Of course, I'd give him one. But I don't know. That's interesting. I don't know. Have to see what happens if I'm in that situation. I
yeah,
actually did see
situation.
him at the event, but I did see John Lee Dumas, and I did meet up with John Loomer and
Yeah.
a whole bunch of cool people. And I should throw some girls' names out there as well. Shailene Johnson, who is talked all about Instagram, and she was just a
Yes.
firecracker of energy. I loved
Yes.
her presentation.
Yes. I didn't get to see hers until the virtual, and I was like, oh boy. Actually, I didn't go to any session, so that's a whole nother
Were you
thing.
just sleeping? Were you having a little doing your self care?
No, I was working. I was working.
Oh,
My role at Social Media Marketing World was to be there for the people.
yeah.
Conference Networking Ambassador is the title that I created. So my role really was to help people connect. And so I'd be walking around going, how's your conference going? Are you connecting with the people that you want to connect with? That. And this year they had me doing some speaking.
Yeah.
So, and we had all kinds of great things that we put forth to help the conference be a place that people can really connect.
Well,
So,
back at you, because I love the fact that you're on stage, and it recognizes the fact that networking is an integral part of being at a conference. It's actually one of the main reasons I think that people attend, but networking with the right people that are in that area and interested in social media and marketing or whatever the topic might be. But you have such this approachable and like humble nature that I think is so great. You're not in people's face. Like, I try not to be in people's face too much, but you're kind of just more calm,
mhm.
but equally as generous and helpful. And I think that's awesome. And
Well,
of course, they remember you because of your bow
because I know. Well, and I think this is very important for the folks listening. Is I've learned that it's the long game. It isn't. It's so not about, oh my God, I see you. I have you right now. I need to go from zero to sale. It's so not about that. It's such a drip, drip, drip process that's what allows me. That's what I've discovered over time. In my experiments, that it allows me to play it cool. And see, meet with whoever, and just, okay, I'll follow up after. The two questions that I shared at Social Media Marketing World, which I like to ask people when I meet them, is, one, what are you working on that you're most passionate about? That gives them room to go work or non-work, right?
tie.
But passion is there, so it's something that's important. You could be building tree houses for all I know, and that's what you really care about. Then what's the biggest challenge you have? Because what's important to them, and two, an obstacle. You can be helpful. You have those two things. You can be helpful to them, and it doesn't have to be on the spot. You can go back and, for some reason, let's say the person who is the treehouse creator of something. You could introduce those people because you have that information. So it's one of those things that you can take and put in your back pocket. And I've actually used that before. I've done that with a speaker where she had a certain challenge, but I didn't have an answer then. I went home, I thought about it, did a handwritten card, and ended up being a guest on her show. Actually, the first Twitter chat that I was on. So, which that led to a whole bunch of other things. So the generosity and taking the time to learn, those are things that all fall under engagement. And then lastly is follow up,
Mm.
and it's understanding that this is where things really happen. This is part of the long game. And the thing that I left social media marketing world, the audience with, is just the number 24, because people ask me all the time, when do I follow up? How do I follow up? I said, just remember the number 24. 24 hours after the event, and then 24 days later. It doesn't actually have to be 24 days. It's really just to tie in to a month later, because by that point, the people who are going to follow up just because they have a card have done it, and they're not going to do it again. And this is another way of standing out, is that just checking in to see how things are going. We met a month ago. So those are some of the things that really help. And some of the things that I teach, whether it be at a conference or through my online course.
Yeah, which I'd love to hear more about in a sec. The 24 hours is great. I mean, I love that because I did that, every evening at the event. I'd go back with my business cards, and I gathered a few business cards, and they weren't necessarily people that there are a variety of people that I just had great, connected with. It was like really got on with. Other people that I thought, ooh, I can help them. Other people that I thought, ooh, you could be a client. So I think that's a great tip, isn't it? Don't just go in with the blinders thinking so my niche is women entrepreneurs, but it doesn't mean I don't talk to men, because, you never know who's going to open a door for you.
That's right. And we wouldn't be here right now. If you didn't talk to men, we wouldn't be here.
I'm talking to a man. It's all good. No, I met so many amazing people. So I got these business cards, and I'd connected with a few of them on LinkedIn or Facebook. And then now that a month's gone by, I mean, there's a few more people that I just haven't even reconnected with. But I love that tip about, you wrote that hand note to that lady. And I think, talking of generosity, you obviously remembered what would be helpful for her, and gave it to her, whether you do that in a card, which is so cool, or electronically, like, hey, so-and-so, I met you at this event, blah, blah, blah. I thought this article might be helpful for you. Here's the link. Or I thought I'd introduce you to so-and-so, here you go. I think that's what goes around comes around.
Yep. And, I'm a big fan of the handwritten note. I like quotable cards. So that's the name of the actual cards itself, for a number of reasons. One is they usually have a cool quote on it. Thank you for being is on the cover of one of them that I have. And also, it's square. Now, if you get a square package, a square envelope in the mail, it's a little bit different than that rectangular one that bills usually come in. So, you want to know what's inside. It takes extra postage, so you have a few extra stamps on there. That's all part of the presentation and ways to really, really stand out. And you brought up something that around the tunnel vision.
Yeah.
Which I'm going to tie back to what you should not do, people, because I did this. I went into a conference, actually Blog World, the same place where I met Rich Brooks, into this super tunnel vision. There's this lady who's organizing who I must meet. I was so tunnel vision, like I saw her standing there talking to someone, like I'm going to be next.
You were a super fan. I was a super fan guy.
I think I was less super fan. I was like super determined guy. Like it was just like ridiculous determination, because it wasn't like, I love your work. It was just like, I have to connect with you. You need to know I exist. I went, and on my way there's a table of people. One lady says, would you like to join us? I was like, no. Mind you, the lady who invited me to sit at this table was like, it's the same table where the person was sitting. So I missed an opportunity to be with a whole group of potential movers and shakers, or just plain old good people, because I was like, no, I have to make sure I'm next. So don't get so caught up in stuff that you miss a bigger opportunity, because it doesn't usually work the way that one person is going to change your life. And usually that will use A-lister, because the A-lister has their own agenda. They're on their move. Most likely the person sitting next to you, left and right, will more likely to work with you and more likely to have more impact on you than just trying to go for this person who's A-lister, where everyone's attention is focused.
I love it. That's so true. It's a good little reminder. I did a blog and a podcast all about my 10 top takeaways from social media marketing world. And some of them are networking things, and some of them are more like tools that I discovered and apps and that type of thing. So if you guys can check that out on the Go-To Girl website, gotogirlsocialmedia.com/ I don't even know what number it is. Number 73/73, just checking on my little calendar behind me. Hey, I've got a story, another what not to do that I'm happy to share now that you've been vulnerable and shared yours. So this is about when traveling to an overseas conference, allow yourself ample time to get there, and most importantly, do not have a nap in the airport. So to elaborate, I flew from New Zealand. I'm Canadian originally, but I've been here for about 18 years now. And I flew from New Zealand, so it's a bit of a long flight. Interestingly, as a little aside, the people got off the plane. They're like, "Oh, that was a rough flight, 13 hours." And I was like, "That was bliss." Like 13 hours, no children asking me to take them to the toilet. Food being brought to me. I'm not making snacks, or I can watch any movie I want. No one interrupting my thoughts or conversation. It was like I loved it. I love my 3 children, but I have to say I loved it. So anyway, I got to LA airport, got to my gate, 40 minutes to spare, lay down to listen to a podcast, promptly fell asleep, and woke up 20 minutes after my plane had left. And the thing is, my friends, like, I wrote about it on Facebook because I have no shame, and it's all good learning for everybody. And my friends were like, "Wow, you must have been exhausted to just fall asleep." I was like, "No, I was not. I was so relaxed for like the first time in forever. I haven't had a nap in a year. So, hey, why not have one in the LA airport, right?" Anyway, I ended up missing my flight. The customer service people at United were amazing. I went up there and I was like, "I'm from New Zealand and I fell asleep and I missed my plane." And they said, "Thank you for your honesty." And I was like, "Well, what else would I have said?" And they're like, "Believe me, honey, we've heard it all." And they said, "The next plane goes at 9:30, so I had 3 hours, and we're happy to put you on that, no charge." Amazing.
Awesome.
I was just like, "Thank you so much." Because I was like, I haven't been to North America for 14 years. Like, I haven't even
Oh, wow.
home is Canada, but I haven't even been to North America for 14 years. And I'm almost there. I'm so close to my destination that I just let my guard down and I fall asleep. Anyway, it all turned out well. But the little tip there is make sure you allow yourself enough time to get to the event, because my plane was actually slightly delayed as well, my first plane. But when I actually did get to the venue at 11 o'clock at night, because my plan was to get there at 7 and get all freshened up and go down to the bar and start networking. But I got there at 11. I looked like, exhausted, and my outfit that I've been wearing for 20 whatever hours. And they were like, "Sorry, we're just doing some work on the elevators or something. It's 11 o'clock. You're going to have to go through the bar." And I was like, "Oh, really?" Where all the social media people were looking awesome, feeling great. And I just like went through and I was like, "Don't see anyone, don't see anyone, I actually did see a few people I knew, and I went over and I was like, I made it safely. I've got a great story for my next keynote speech. This is going to be a good one. Anyway, so there's my little tip: is don't fall asleep in the airport, but allow yourself time. I had allowed myself time either side. I actually went to Natalie Sisson's one-day mastermind the day after the conference, which was awesome. But what I really was surprised at is how everyone just basically skipped town afterwards. And so my little top tip is, if you're going to allow some buffer in your schedule or some sightseeing time, do it beforehand so you can acclimatize and you can just like start networking and allow for little unforeseen experiences like random naps.
That's right. Random naps. I love it.
Very cool. So I like your framework. I think that's awesome and helpful. Actually, we'd love to hear from you guys. Mike and we're always open to other people's thoughts and tips on how to network at conferences, which is the topic of the day. So you can comment on the show notes to go along with this. So I want a quick question. What are your thoughts on business cards? Like actually having them yourself?
I was split on this. For a second, I was on the everything's going digital, ban the business cards. But what I've noticed is sometimes to do the digital, it can take a while to get the information transferred. Let's say I don't even know if people still use Bump, but if the Bump didn't work, you're in this like funky trying to figure things out, where sometimes it's quick and you just need to hand someone something. They're going this way, you're going that way. Oh, excuse me a second. I know you don't have much time, but I just wanted to, we can make more time later, but here's my card. Like, you can't do that digitally. What's your Twitter handle? It's just a little bit awkward, Let me give you my Twitter. Hey, take down my. So I'm for business cards.
I think if you've got both, you've got options. And it's interesting. I was just the other day, I was showing, like I said, I have no shame. I was showing some of my clients, like from a branding perspective, right? Some of my business cards from the early days. And it's amazing what a good, like a professional photo and actually hiring a graphic designer instead of doing it yourself. So I don't know if you can see this. So this is like one of my early days business cards, right? Just a photo that I cropped, just a photo of me that my husband took. And then I moved to this, which is fine. It's still got my dots, the branding, but the photo's not as good. And then it's like, who would you hire, right? It's amazing the difference.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I love these. I love the big. They kind of stand out. People, some people fold them, and I'm like, no. But I like those.
How
They're a
dare
little
you?
bit more memorable than the little ones.
Yes. That's awesome. Yeah, you see it, and it's the whole thing I think about people and faces because that last one, you're there. You know,
Yeah,
we have much more of you. So that's
yeah,
awesome.
and personality rather than just me standing beside the tree. So
Right.
yeah, and I know you do a lot about personal branding. So tell me, what's coming up for you in 2015? You mentioned earlier that you've got a course.
Yeah, so I have an online course. It's on demand. You can all that stuff can be found at thenewartofconferencenetworking.com.
Hmm.
And 2015, most of my time in 2015 has been spent with my son, who's now 1 years old. So I'm kind of in this transition phase and looking at what's next, which may be doing all this stuff for a company. But most of my time has been with raising little Emerson, little Emerson. My wife works outside the home. I've been juggling and balancing all the stuff at home.
That is awesome. Hey, you know what? High five. I'm high fiving you right now because that's great. Because I know from as a mompreneur, I know, and I talk a lot about this. I've even got the hashtag juggling the mother load, how to run a business while raising a family. And I love to hear it from a dad's perspective. First of all, I love to see you doing it because right, this is why I wrote my book, which is like in the background there. If only they told me. It was because it was like we just wanted people to know, you know what, you're not the only ones that find it harder than you kind of imagined, and harder on the relationship, the marriage relationship as well. Like no one ever tells you about that stuff. So in our book we talk about all those things people don't talk about.
Yeah.
So it's not so much how to start solids and how to toilet train. It's more how to have a thriving marriage and a thriving time with your kids rather than berating yourself for not being the awesome parent you thought you were going to be. But I'm
Yeah.
sure you are an awesome parent.
Well, I try. It depends on what day you catch me. I just picked up the five love languages.
Yes.
So keeping my just keep learning. Keep learning. The situations change, the environment changes, and you have to be able to adapt and learn different things. And that's where I am.
That's awesome. So I think that's great. And it is hard to juggle your time, but because you've got all these ideas, you're entrepreneurial, you've got all these ideas, you've got these amazing connections with people, and you want to just action that. But then you also have this beautiful child that is growing by the minute, that needs to be cared for.
Yes.
And if you don't care for them, then you've got to pay someone else too. And then there's all the guilt and questions around that. It's tough.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely is. I mean, the biggest thing that I've learned in my year or 9 months, because my wife was here for 3 months on maternity leave, is around energy. And you think just looking on paper, an Excel spreadsheet and saying, okay, this is the amount of time I have, or a calendar, this is the amount of time I have to do work and all that stuff. It sounds really good, but then there's this whole energy drain. Typical day for me, I would get up at 3:50 a.m. just so I could be at my desk by 4. My coffee and desk at 4. Work from 4 to 7 a.m. Then daddy daycare starts when my wife gets ready. So I'm cooking breakfast and wife is getting ready for work and Emerson is up. And then when he naps, I would do some work. But usually at that time, I'm pretty tired. I'm tired. So my body can only take so many days of doing those 3:50 a.m.
Are
So
you still doing those?
I do it not as often. I kind of moved from 3:50 to about 5 o'clock now,
Yeah. Oh, it's
because
a sleep in.
I just don't yeah I just don't go to bed early enough to
I was
really.
going to say, so what time do you go to bed?
Well, ideally on paper the plan is 9:50. That's on paper, but it never happens that way.
It's tricky. I had to put a little rule in because I'm the same. I'm not very good with I got to call it buffer and boundaries. It's something I talk about. I'm not, because I try to squeeze it in around my 4-year-old, who goes to childcare 2.5 days a week. But I really try to work a lot of the time, probably too often. I really want to start blocking out the time better. And this is something a lot of us entrepreneurs, yeah, need to do. It's hard because your work never ends. The to-do list doesn't go away. So you have to, like I say to myself, I'm going to turn the computer off at 9 o'clock. Actually, that does not work for me. If I say 9:30, yes, I can do it. But because the kids are getting older, they're going to bed later. I'm like, what's happening to my work time?
Uh-huh.
Um, yeah.
That's exactly it. Emerson is 1 years old now, and one of the biggest change is that I would think, oh, when he's awake, I can do some work, but now he needs more attention.
Mhm.
It's like, you better pick me up. I'm standing here. Can't you see me standing here? And I'm trying to do like, oh, I'll get this thing in. And So a lot of the stuff it takes a lot more planning and doing work in the morning, maybe some at night. 1 years old, we're just in the discussion phase of doing daycare. So those type of things are kind of what I'm working on. That's what 2015 looks like. A couple
And
of
also, I
conferences
mean,
there.
speaking of networking, I mean, now a lot of my networking, because I have email overwhelm, a lot of my a lot of my networking I do on Facebook. I love Facebook. I love private messaging. And I do a lot of that kind of stuff in after hours, as such. But I try not to be one of those parents that's always on the phone around the kids. But I'm
Yeah.
constantly, one of my key tips for networking, I've got my course is the 7 Secrets course. One of my key tips is always to reconnect or reintroduce people that you know. And I sometimes do that on Facebook. I'll be like, hey, so and so and so. I just wanted to introduce you to each other. I know there's great synergy between your businesses, or you've got a similar target audience and a different offering. I think maybe you guys could work together. And then I usually say, I'll leave it to you guys to be in touch. Like I kind of hand it over. So I'm like,
Hmm.
over to you. Or I'll leave it to you guys to share each other your email addresses and your websites and be in touch. And I think that's something that, you probably do that all the time as well.
Not as much as I should, but definitely one tool I use is Contactually, which
Yeah.
is a button you can press that says intro, and it allows you to put both people's information in there.
Handy.
Yeah, and then like you said, you don't need to copy me anymore.
Yeah,
You
I'm all done.
guys do your
What
thing.
That's a great question I was going to ask you actually. What is one of your favorite tools or your social media platforms at the moment?
One of my favorite tools is meddle.it. So that's Meddle. And it really is about helping people to build their own like content empire, if you will. So usually when you're reading an article, you think it's great, you get to the bottom, maybe you leave a comment. And that comment just stays in that space there. With Meddle, what it allows you to do is actually while you're reading, let's say you find a sentence or a paragraph that you want to comment on, you can highlight it and then put a comment on it, and it'll actually allow you to send it to Twitter, to LinkedIn, to Facebook, and it's also stored on your own Metal page. And that Metal page, just picture this, articles like for me, I'm a huge Seth Godin fan. So there's some articles from Seth Godin. I'll read something from the Harvard Business Review, and I'm sharing all this stuff. So it makes you one of those people who are like, oh, this person's always giving valuable stuff. So it has all this stuff on one page, and you can actually take that and turn it into a widget and put that widget on your website. So this is one way to create content, which ties back from a networking perspective as people are looking you up and they're going, what is this person all about? This gives a sense of what you're all about. And it's a fairly easy way to create content.
Yeah, I like that. And so it's adding content to your website, which is great for your Google. It's also making you like the hub of whatever your particular area is.
Right.
Is that a paid tool or free?
Free. It's free.
Awesome.
It's free for individuals, and then they have some enterprise stuff that they do. Which I really love what they do on an enterprise level as well, because they allow. Sorry if any engineers are in the crowd, but they allow what stereotypical engineer. There's no way that they would be really creating this content. They're too technical, but everyone reads and everyone has an opinion. So if
Yeah.
you're reading something, highlight, here are my thoughts on it. All of a sudden, you have all this content and you can curate that as a company. Like that's part of the stuff that they do. So there's this whole movement around employee advocacy, and we want employees to be marketing for us. This is a great way to go.
I love it. Okay, awesome. I'll put the link to that in the show notes. And the other one that I just discovered recently, thanks to Jamie Tardy at Eventual Millionaire, is Sniply. Have you heard of Sniply?
Yes, I have.
I love it.
That's
I
an
know. So,
awesome tool.
so kind of similar, but different to what Metal is. So Sniply, which is snip.ly, is I think they do a free trial, but then it's 20 something dollars a month. I think I did a little video about it a few weeks ago. But basically, if you're curating content, which means finding amazing, relevant articles, rather than just sending people, oh, here's the link, Facebook, here's a great article I found all about XYZ, here's the link, and sending them away, you actually get a little bit more value for it, a bit more win-win, because when they go to that link, because you've put it into the link into Sniply beforehand, which gives you a separate little link, it has a little pop-up. So if I say, here's a great article L about XYZ, somebody clicks it, they go to it, but then at the bottom left-hand corner, a little picture of me pops up and it says something, whatever I've typed in the box, which basically says, for more fabulous content and a great community of entrepreneurs, join my, check out Go To Girl or something like that. And then it sends them through to my website or my landing page or wherever I want them to go. So very cool. But it is a paid feature, whereas yours is slightly different, but it's free.
Yeah.
Love it. And that is, in a way, it is networking. I mean, you're getting your name out there more, whichever way you do it.
It's all part of it. It's all part of it, because part of networking is there's so many people you're meeting. There's the big question of, who can I trust? Is this person serious? All those things are going on. All the things that we don't necessarily talk about. One way that you can find this type of stuff out is if you go into an area where you're not necessarily known, but you've been doing your work. You have your site, you have your content, you have all this beautiful stuff going. And so you meet someone and they really don't seem to give you time of day. They're one of those people. But later on, they want to connect with you all of a sudden because they saw what you actually have going on. So I'm a big fan of telling people to do your work. Do your work so that when people are looking, it's like, oh, that's who you are. Or that great feeling when people start coming up to you and going, you're so-and-so. And you're like, how in heaven's name did you know that? It's your work. So that's all part of networking.
Yeah, definitely. The credibility online. Excellent. So how can people contact you? You mentioned it earlier, but what is your website and how can people get in touch?
The new art of conferencenetworking.com is a great way to get in touch with me. Anywhere else, any other platform, just type in Ambassador Bruny, B as in boy, Runy, and you'll find me.
And where did the whole name come from, the Mike Ambassador Bruny? Were you born with that name?
No, unfortunately. I've had this discussion with my mom. It's like, what were you thinking, not giving me the name Ambassador? Well, Ambassador basically is because I run in so many different circles, and I just really love to kind of serve as a bridge or connector, if you will. So I like to say I just discovered a name for who I was. So I kept it. I kept it.
That's awesome. I look forward to seeing what 2015, the rest of 2015 brings for you. You're always out there helping people. So it's great. Keep it up. You've done a great job. And hopefully I'll see you when you come to New Zealand sometime. Bring your family over.
Yes. Thank you so much, Natalie.
That's great. Thanks so much, Mike. You can check out the show notes on gotogirlsocialmedia.com/ambassador. Thanks so much for listening, everyone. Until next time, this is Natalie Cutler-Welch, the Go-To Girl, making social media and networking easy, fun, and fabulous.
All right. Let's see. Stop.